Double kill.
Be advised, the enemy has set the charge for objective Bravo.
不需要你来保护这个目标。
Surprise, motherfucker.
Welcome to the history of Battlefield, where in this documentary you'll be finding out how Battlefield has changed over time and what it is today. Battlefield is made by a Swedish developer which go by the name of DICE and is published by the American company Electronic Arts, otherwise known as EA. You may know EA for games such as FIFA, but let's be honest, football's boring and shooting people in the face is much more fun. I'm sorry Johnny if I offended you, you can stop crying now because you're disturbing my documentary. This documentary is also only going to be covering the main titles in the series, which means games like Battlefield Play for Free and Battlefield Heroes are not going to be included within this list of games. So let's get right into it with Battlefield 1942, which is the first game in the series, made by obviously DICE and published by EA, just like most of the other games are. The game was made on the Refactor 1 engine, which was their first engine for the Battlefield games. If you look at this game today, you'll probably think it is not a very amazing game, but back then it was amazing. When it first came out, everyone loved it, and I certainly did. The graphics, like I say today, you know, people think I can shit out better graphics than that, but you know, back in the day, apparently shit looked good. There was a bountiful amount of content in this game. When you played the game, you could play as many different classes. You could play as many sides as well. You could play as the United States, United Kingdom, Soviet Union, Germany and Japan. Regardless of which nation you chose, you could also choose a class for each one of those nations, being the Scout, Assault, Medic, Anti-Tank and Engineer. There was also 2 expansions within this game, known as the Road to Rome, it's a fucking mouthful, and Secret Weapons of World War II. The game came out in September 2002 on Microsoft Windows and June 2004 on Mac. Moving on to the second game in the series, we have Battlefield Vietnam.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird.
Oh my god, this is Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen. This is my favorite song of all time.
The bird is a word.
Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird.
Battlefield Vietnam is running on the same engine as Battlefield 42, which is the Refactor 1 engine. Battlefield Vietnam is effectively the same game as Battlefield 1942, as it is, like I say, running on the same engine, but it does feature different maps, weapons and vehicles as it is set in a different time period. When you play the game, you can choose from 2 teams. You can either choose from Americans or yeah, I can't pronounce that. The premise of this game was to have sort of different balancing between the teams, whereas in all the other games, each team would get a tank, each team would get a plane. But in this game, they wanted to be more realistic, and the Americans got all the tanks, but the those guys got nothing essentially, because when the Vietnam War, and they didn't have much in the way of vehicles, and they wanted to stick to that realism. So basically people who played on that team had to rely more on themselves and the tactics they have and work as a group to defeat the Americans. Battlefield Vietnam was released in March 2004. So the next game in the series is Battlefield 2. We have talked about the previous games and how they have been past wars, you know, Vietnam and all that whatnot. This game focuses more on the modern side of war, so modern wars, so you'll be seeing a lot more modern weapons and a lot more modern vehicles too. This game sprouted a lot of new features, one of those features being squads, where you could have 4 people in a squad that work together instead of just the whole team working together, so it's a lot more, it basically makes people think more about working in a squad. And not only that feature, but there's also Commander, which is like a top-down view of the map where the commander can drop supplies in and command certain squads to go into certain places and do certain things. This game was also made on the Refactor 2 engine, which was an upgrade to the previous games, and basically what this means is they can have better graphics for the game and the game will just feel overall more smooth than the previous ones. This game also introduced the recording of stats. Basically what this is if you've played the game for 500 hours, you can have a look and see how many kills you've had in that time or how many headshots you've had in that time. You can even find out your longest headshot, and you may know this feature from games like Battlefield 4 where you can go on battle log and you can see all your stats. Fans were very fond of that feature for recording your stats, but they're also fond of another feature, which is the Battlefield Recorder, which basically when you finish the game you can choose to save that gameplay and you can fly around the map in spectator mode and watch everyone, and people use this to create movies like the one you're watching now overlaid. This is a movie a fan has made of Battlefield with the built-in recorder the game comes with. Battlefield 2 was released in June 2005 and also had a slightly watered down version for the console called Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, which was released in the same year. Battlefield 2 also had 3 DLCs named Special Forces, Euro Force and Armoured Fury, adding more content to the game.
Welcome to duty.
So we've talked about past wars, we've talked about present wars. Now let's go into the future with the next game in the series, Battlefield 2 Titan and Battlefield 2142. So Battlefield 2142 was set in the 22nd century, and this was during a new ice age, and in the game there are 2 sides and they are 2 military superpowers, which are the European Union and the Pan-Asian Coalition. This game focuses primarily on multiplayer gameplay. You will not find a single player campaign within this game, it's all multiplayer. But if you do want to play by yourself, you'll be playing against bots. This game is very similar to Battlefield 2 in terms of mechanics and how things work, but obviously the only changes you'll be seeing in this game are the weapons and the vehicles, as it is set in the future, so everything will be futuristic. Another similarity it shares with Battlefield 2 is that it was made on the same engine, which is still the Refactor 2 engine. The game was lacking in terms of game modes, as there are only 2 game modes to choose from. You have your traditional Battlefield Conquest, where you go around the map capturing flags and keeping hold of them until you drain the enemy of tickets, and you also have the Titan mode. Titan mode being where one team gets a Titan, and the team who gets the Titan has to defend the Titan, and the team without the Titan, who are the defending team, has to destroy the enemy's Titan. There was a downloadable content for Battlefield 2142 called Northern Strike, which contained new maps, unlocks and vehicles. There was also later a deluxe edition which contained both the game and the expansion pack, which is the only expansion pack. Battlefield 2142 was released in October 2006 for Microsoft Windows and Mac. The next few games are where the Battlefield series really started to take off and started to catch more people's eyes, and let's start with the first game, Battlefield Bad Company. Battlefield Bad Company was a shot in another direction for the Battlefield genre, as this game had a very good single player campaign but also an extremely good multiplayer. This game was one of my personal favourites in the series and was only available on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, which many people found a big mistake, as a lot of the previous Battlefield games were PC only, and to have them strip the PC of a new Battlefield game made the PC fanbase quite angry. DICE and EA saw Battlefield Bad Company as a massive selling point for the series. It also sported the new engine upgrade, which is still being used and developed on today, called the Frostbite engine. This was the first engine, so it's Frostbite 1.0, but today it is Frostbite 3.0. This engine really helped the Battlefield series as it introduced destructible environments, which is a big selling point for the Battlefield series today, and was also the first time it was ever done in a game, as you could destroy anything that was standing in your way, from buildings to walls. There are other games that actually did this, like Red Faction Guerrilla, but none of them were like a first person shooter online game. The advertising for the game was also done really well, as there were many different adverts, and all of which were kind of like comedy skits but in game, and I'll show you one now. It is 50 seconds long, so please enjoy.
Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow, no tomorrow. And I find it kinda funny, I find it kinda sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had.
Please shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Sorry.
The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. What does that mean? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, it's a dream.
How about this song? Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread.
There were many of these little videos made, and they were all advertised on TV, and the fans absolutely loved them. Battlefield Bad Company was released in June of 2008 on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The next game I had doubts as to whether or not it should have been on this list, but I put it on the list anyway, and the game in question is Battlefield 1943. Battlefield 1943 was a really strange entry in the series, as it was really watered down. There wasn't a lot in the game, it was really bare bones, and that's weird for a Battlefield game, as the previous one had quite a lot more content than this one, considering it is the next game in the series. They've kind of downgraded. With that being said though, it kind of shows that downgrades aren't necessarily a bad thing. And what I mean by the game being really bare bones and downgraded is the fact there are only 3 maps in the game. A 4th one did come earlier when players reached 43 million kills, which is ironic because it's Battlefield 1943 and that was obviously intended. And how that the game's classes are extremely bare bones, as there are only 3 classes you can choose from, all of which have 1 weapon, and you can't pick the weapon, you pick the class, you get given a weapon, and you can't choose between. And also there are only 4 vehicles in the game, and each team gets one of the vehicles. But all that may have gone backwards, but this game was priced at a DLC price. Usually when new games come out like this, they're about 40 quid, this game was only 15 quid. The game did receive an engine upgrade though to Frostbite 1.5, with the previous game being Frostbite 1.0. The game was released in July of 2009. The next game in the list is the sequel to Battlefield Bad Company, which is Battlefield Bad Company 2. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was running on the same engine as Battlefield 1943, which is the Frostbite 1.5 engine. This is a game in the Battlefield series that really made the multiplayer stand out. Battlefield Bad Company, the first one, was half and half with single player and multiplayer, but this game continues the single player campaign from the first one, but also improves a lot on the multiplayer. This game was cram-packed full of content. It included 7 map packs as well as a downloadable game mode and an expansion pack centered around the Vietnam War called Battlefield Bad Company Vietnam. This game also included a lot more game modes for the multiplayer. You have your traditional Battlefield Conquest, Rush, which was seen in Battlefield Bad Company, and then you have Squad Rush, which just consists of 2 squads fighting for the MCOMs, and Squad Deathmatch, where you get 4 squads all fighting together to try and get the most kills. This is the game where the Battlefield franchise really kicked off, as Battlefield Bad Company got 2.5 million sales, but Bad Company 2 got 6.5 million sales, and this got more people into the game because in the next game, Battlefield 3, received 13 million sales. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was released in March 2010 for PlayStation, Xbox and PC. Now we move on to the next game, Battlefield 3, which was the most popular game in the series, and it received over 16.7 million sales. Battlefield 3 had a decent story. It wasn't the best, but where the game really shined was in the multiplayer. The game, campaign and multiplayer, are both set in 2014 and take place in many places including Iran, Paris, France and even New York. EA and DICE were really proud of their new engine for this game, which was the Frostbite 2 engine, which allowed for much bigger and better destructible environments. According to sales figures, the game sold 5 million copies within its first week of release. The game featured a lot of weapons and vehicles, along with a lot of customization options for said weapons and vehicles for you to bury yourself in. The game also had a lot of maps for you to play, all with unique environments and unique locations, and they even expanded this content even more with numerous DLCs, adding more maps, weapons and vehicles. The game still gets over 14,000 people playing it daily, even after 5 years of release. Battlefield 3 was released in October 2011 for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and PC. Now we're moving on to the final game in the series, Battlefield 4.
Wait, want to buy a rifle for 50p?
50p? Yes, I should say so.
Tom!
Good.
Battlefield 4 was met with a really rocky launch, but today is perfectly fine and considered one of the best Battlefields. The reason for the rocky launch being the netcode was not up to par for the game. It had a few issues with it. People were getting shot from around walls, getting shot from behind cover, and it really threw the fan base off. It took them almost a year to fix this problem, but now it is all fixed and perfectly fine to play. You still do get the odd person complaining about it, but really that's just an excuse for being terrible at the game. Battlefield 4 was packed with new features, one of the new features being Levolution, where you could tear down big buildings in the map and start big events which would change the map and change how people had to play. This feature really helped keep the gameplay dynamic. You are about to see an example of the revolution right now on a map called Siege Shanghai, where the tower falls down, and instead of fighting in the tower, you're fighting within the rubble of the tower. Not only were big map changing events part of Battlefield 4, but there were also little things, like you could shoot pipes and the pipes would ignite and explode. You could also tear down walls and turn off lights and make a room really dark, forcing people to use the flashlights or night vision to see in the room. I'll show you an example now of using this to your advantage. This is some gameplay I recorded on a map called Operation Locker, and throughout the map there are places with the pipes I mentioned before, and there was loads of enemies coming down a corridor, so I decided to shoot the pipe to kill them all. There are many things like that scattered throughout all the maps in the game, but you don't really see that many people use them, which is unfortunate because it's a really cool feature. Battlefield 4 had 5 paid DLCs: China Rising, Second Assault, Naval Strike, Dragon's Teeth and Final Stand, all of which added many more maps, weapons, attachments, vehicles, etc. to the game. There are also free DLCs, one called Night Operations, which takes a previous map from the Battlefield 4 and turns it into night time, so it's extremely dark and players are forced to use night vision and flashlights to be able to see. Another one, Community Operations, which was a community made map made by a bunch of community members, which was added into the game, and Legacy Operations, which took a map from Battlefield 2 and remastered it using Battlefield 4's engine. Battlefield 4 was released in October 2013 for both current gen and last gen consoles and PC.
I've been driving in my car. It's not quite a Jaguar. I bought it in Primrose Hill from a bloke from Brazil. It was made in '59 in a factory by the time. It says Morris on